This war stops now.
You are tired of the war. I can see on your face.
End the war. Bring freedom to our people.
Welcome to the Stop and Listen podcast. I am your host, Jamie. This is episode number 4. So Donald Trump Jr. tweeted this. All these guys know deep down that it's over. But their goal isn't to win the nomination. It's to try to damage Trump and help Biden win next November. So, it links to an article which it has DeSantis, Christie, and of course Nikki Haley as the image. No Vivek Ramaswamy. Is it because they think so little of him because he is so low in the polls? But he's about even with Christie, right? But he's the one who's not criticizing Trump. The one who is acting as if he's a stand-in for Trump at these debates. It seems like there's something to that.
Going to start arresting them. So they told us to get back in our cars, but most everybody's getting out of their car right before the.
So it looks like a major highway was shut down in Los Angeles on the 110 freeway. Never been to Los Angeles, but I'm fairly certain I've heard Adam Carolla complaining about that a time or two. But look at this.
6th Street, Wilshire exit. And we just found out that the going to start arresting them.
A ceasefire protest. So they're in L.A., and they're protesting because they want a foreign government to stop firing upon a declared enemy. Now, I'm not getting into the Israel versus Hamas stuff, but this is ridiculous. It's just the self-centeredness, the narcissism, I guarantee you for everyone sitting there is off the charts. Who do they think they are? They have no concern if there are people who are having a medical emergency, if they've just got to go to the bathroom. We've all been in those moments. And what is the mayor? So I guess the mayor of, or maybe somebody important enough dies while in the traffic jam, and they could make the right phone calls to the right people and get a hold of Netanyahu. The mayor of LA is supposed to get a hold of Biden and ask him, demand. Because they're demanding, the protests are demanding. So I suppose if you keep going up, so they expect the mayor to demand, I guess, from the governor. The Newsom should demand from Biden that the United States demands a ceasefire. That's not how you make a difference. That's terrorism, and that's how you get people to hate you and not sympathize with your mindset at all. But keep up the good work. So Pierre Poilievre had a great interview a few weeks ago that I'm going to try to work in here at some point to talk about, but because he's just a master class in the Socratic method. But here is the Parliament, I guess, in Canada, which he is a member of, and he is challenging Trudeau, trying to become the Prime Minister of Canada.
Voted against an approach that has spent $87 billion on affordable housing to double the cost of housing. He thinks that if he's expensive, he's excused for his failures. Mr. Speaker, failing is bad. Failing expensively is even worse. Our common sense plan would require cities permit 15% more housing as a condition of getting their financing, give them bonuses if they beat the...
I'm not getting into the politics of Canada. I don't know enough about it, nor do I care too much. They are our, obviously, neighbor, but there wasn't, in Congress, there was some kind of dust-up between a couple of guys. I don't think it was the Senate. It may have been no, it was the Senate because I remember Bernie Sanders was squealing about it. But I don't even remember what that was, and I guess it didn't lead to anything. Never heard about it again. But people start saying, "Oh no, you can't. You got to act with decorum." There's a certain level. There's just a certain manner of how you act when you're in elected office and you're going to these song and dances. No, be yourself and stand up for what you believe in. And if that means getting put on the news, that's a good thing. We should. I don't know how many Americans come home. I mean, they can certainly come home and watch the news and see what the news says about it, but we don't come home and like, I wonder what happened on Capitol Hill. Let's go see what happened. I mean, if something big enough happens, if it's and the right media source wants to pick up on it and then talk about it that we listen to, but I would like a little bit more passion from our politicians. I mean, if our and we have to push them there. I mean, we can post on Facebook and Twitter and have a great time just reinforcing our beliefs. They don't give a shit about us. Now, I have not watched this at all, but the headline it caught my eye. 50% of schoolgirls in the U.S. felt persistently sad or hopeless during the pandemic, double that of boys, according to the CDC. So let's watch it. It's 40 seconds, so we're going to watch this.
At Newburgh Free Academy in New York, cell phones are locked away for the entire school day, including lunch.
Sounds like a great idea.
Students like Tyson Hill and Monique May say it's a relief after constantly being on their phones during the COVID lockdown, when screen time among adolescents more than doubled.
Your generation is in the midst of a mental health crisis. How much do you blame the phones and social media for taking a toll on your mental health?
So here's my quick thought I had. As I mentioned earlier, I've been nicotine-free, cigarette-free for a year now. I was vaping when I last had nicotine, but either way, the reward system it's very similar to that of popping open your phone, except for I mean you can do that nonstop, and you couldn't really sit there and smoke cigarettes just nonstop like you can with the phone. But so what the school sounds like they're effectively doing is that they're slapping the kids on the hand without actually slapping them on the hand when they go for their phone. And I wonder. I mean, I started smoking. I think I got hands on cigarettes when I was like 15 years old, and then when I was 16, working at a job, all the cool kids were in the back smoking cigarettes, and I said, "Oh, when I get that first paycheck, I'm gonna have you guys buy me some cigarettes." And they handed some over to me, and from that point, more or less, I smoked for 25 years. I wonder, though, if I would have had someone, I mean, obviously the law didn't prevent me from getting them because I was buying cigarettes when I was like 14, 15 years old. But if I had some kind of a authority figure slapping the cigarette out of my hand, maybe literally, would I put that much resistance to it? There was no resistance to it. It was only upside when I was 16 years old and dove in. And most of that 25 years was guilt, smoking cigarettes out of guilt, a shame that I couldn't quit.
All of it.
All of it.
For me personally, yeah.
I blame my darkest moments because of my phone.
And of the isolation, like, social media, you can have a social media, a Facebook page full of friends, people you went to high school with that you may have even have talked to in high school, but not always. People you worked with at many different points of your life, you're probably friends with, and they're posting. I mean, most of them are doing the same thing you're doing, but it certainly doesn't feel like that. And you sit alone while you see or you believe a world is out there. I don't know what we need to do. Maybe it'll come true. Yeah, if you haven't heard, there's a Netflix movie. I forgot what the title of it is, but Obama's helped produce it. And there's a cyber attack. It basically takes us back to the Stone Age, and it's because we're getting what we deserve as Americans and so forth. Well, maybe that'll happen before things get any worse. But quickly, it needs to be even quicker. So this isn't news, but I'm going to make it news. It just dawned on me that because there's talk about Hunter Biden, he was supposed to appear in front of Congress so they can ask him questions. And how smart this is, I don't know. But what's right is right. I don't care what political party somebody is. If they break the law, they should be held responsible. But here, the Democrats are trying to put away former president and the leading candidate for the Republican Party, Donald Trump. They're trying to put him in prison. And the Republicans can't even get a crackhead criminal. Look, they can't do anything to him. They can't lay a hand on him. Like, how bad is that? So, any of you, or if you know somebody, please ask them this. Like, if the Republicans are stopping the utopia, how so? When's it coming? Because I don't see Republicans obstructing anything by any means. They just put their own signature on it and pass it along for our ancestors. Then, okay, so the last thing I want to talk about today, I seen this video from USA Today, in pop culture becoming more conservative. And there's a picture of Oliver Anthony up there. I have not watched this. It's a 10-minute video. I'll see what happens.
Hello, and welcome to The Excerpt. I'm Dana Taylor. Whether it's politics, sexual identity, or women's liberation, Hollywood has a well-earned reputation for slanting liberal. The conservative viewpoint, meanwhile, has struggled to get a strong foothold in American pop culture, whether that's through television, movies, or music. The trend seems to shift a little bit this year.
See, right there, that's not true. Not entirely true. And obviously, the left, the liberals, have a pretty good stranglehold on it. But the traditional values have never gone away. I mean, the most... Tim Allen had that show, what was it called, not Home Improvement, the most recent one, where the first several seasons where he came off, he was a really conservative type character and actually made fun of the left. Made fun of liberals. That was one of the most popular TV shows out there. The movie The Sound of Freedom, I had to think about that. When I first started doing the channel, before I had any videos out, I kind of did like a reaction to The Sound of Freedom. Right when I came out of the theater, I was hits pretty strong on that. And so it was a pretty raw video, but I called it The Sound of Silence. The Simon Garfunkel song, so that got scrapped. But that was popular. So right now, I don't like the premise, and I'm just guessing. I wonder where she's going to take this.
Was this completely organic, or was it by design? And if pop culture is now a battleground, is anyone winning? Here to dive into it with me is Joel Penny, Associate Professor at the School of Communication and Media at Montclair State University. Joel, thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me today.
Okay, so you've said that there's now more of a
So, I mean, this is a podcast by the USA Today called The Excerpt, which I'd never heard of. So, let's see where this conversation goes. Let's be optimistic.
concerted effort in the conservative world to push into pop culture as one of their big battlegrounds. What's taken them so long?
For a long time, there was this attitude in conservative media and conservative circles that the world of pop culture, specifically Hollywood, was sort of a bridge too far. It was sort of untouchable. But that's changed recently because they really do feel that there's
I do believe that to some extent because I mean there's always that fabled group of Hollywood conservatives that would meet in private that they and let their freak flag fly, and now that anybody can have a podcast, that is developed to a point where now we can, like the Daily Wire, kiss them our ass a little more, but they're putting out content. They're putting their money behind it. And we just haven't had good enough people. I mean, there's been lots of like movies, that ended up on direct-to-video or to Hallmark Channel. That if a little bit more artistic effort was put towards them, you'd have a quality product. But they can't get the big names. So that's one thing. Look, when you have the Koch brothers, Koch whatever, they throw their money around left-wing Republicans. But it'd be nice to see. I mean, you've got the Daily Wire, and I think we'll see more of that. But if we just had conservative people with money to start investing that in entertainment.
There are gains to be won politically from engaging more proactively with pop culture, particularly with entertainment media.
Well, political satire and American pop culture, that's nothing new. Shows like Saturday Night Live and The Daily Show, along with all of the popular late-night talk shows, they help shape public perceptions about politics and politicians. Is late night pretty much still the realm of liberals?
Late night television is really not what it used to be. That really has to do with the technology and broadcast television, not just having that huge audience.
Conservatives do not have any control of network TV. And late night TV, I'm 41 years old. I haven't watched late night TV in, over 20 years. I mean, if she's talking about like the Jimmy Fallons and the Stephen Colbert's of the world, she mentioned Saturday Night Live, which I don't think anyone ever. I think if you watch ones from the 90s or 80s now, it probably would come off as extremely right wing.
Used to. Most of those kinds of shows now are really producing content for online clips to go viral. So the sort of real power players in the late night comedy world really aren't where they once were. But there's increasingly more and more outlets for political satire. Obviously this happens a lot on the web, and a lot of digital sites, including conservative sites, are producing content for their audience, really targeted to their audience. And so they don't need the broadcast networks to do that. They're now creating their own media infrastructure to really kind of go around some of the major players and contact and sort of relate to their audience pretty directly.
Well, I was going to ask, outside the world of cable news, if anything is being produced in that vein that speaks to a more conservative audience, and you're saying just not on the scale of network late night television.
There's a lot of efforts to create kind of an alternative media infrastructure for conservative news and opinion, and increasingly entertainment. You have sometimes major investors getting involved with this. A lot of this stuff is going towards streaming and towards these kind of niche services that are, again, really all about serving the audience directly through digital means, and really bypassing all that kind of old-fashioned media infrastructure, particularly broadcast TV, which, as you said before, conservatives often perceive to be kind of completely liberal in terms of its politics.
We saw some viral media that was trending this year that conservatives sort of touted as extolling their values, regardless of the content creator's intentions. Two examples, the song Richmond, North of Richmond, and the movie Sound of Freedom, which so far is 2023's most successful indie film. Do you think that could jumpstart conservatives' efforts to bring their perspectives into more media?
Those were definitely big moments this summer, kind of a proof of concept that conservative entertainment could find an.
So as far as that goes, The Sound of Freedom, yes. Apparently, Disney did own the rights to that story. It expired. It went to Netflix. It expired. Then it became what it is. Then what it became in the theaters. Richmond North of Richmond, I never heard on the radio once. I was told it was played a little bit, and it's gone. He was not with a record label. They're not playing him. And Oliver Anthony is almost forgotten, but he is. I mean, he posts on Facebook, he posts on socials quite a bit. Like, he's just out there having fun, playing, living life, and it's great. But not. I mean, that's certainly. So that's why I'm doing this show, and that wasn't a conservative anthem. That was an American anthem. See, when you say she did it, like, well, Oliver Anthony, that's conservative. Well, no. I mean, these labels are tearing us apart because we don't even understand them. I'm in St. Louis, Cubs, Cardinals. Everything that I like is Cardinals. Everything that you like is Cubs. That's the system we work in.
Audience. There have been efforts like this going on for a while, and sometimes it hasn't really turned out so successfully. Something like the movie Sound of Freedom, was really marketed as a thriller and kind of having this social commentary on the issue of child trafficking. So it wasn't necessarily branded as entirely a kind of.
Okay, so did you hear that? So let's hear that again.
Turned out so successfully. Something like the movie Sound of Freedom, was really marketed as a thriller and kind of having this social commentary on the issue of child trafficking.
Social commentary on child trafficking. When I watched the film, it was a brave man that was doing what was right. Whether he lost his family or his own life, he had to do what was right. So in the last episode, that line from Jordan Peterson, find what burden you can, the biggest burden you can handle. I'm not saying it the way he wrote it. Find the biggest burden you can handle and carry it with you. That's what that man did. I forgot his name. I subscribed to his podcast. I'm always very unprepared.
So it wasn't necessarily branded as entirely a kind of red state or Republican kind of movie, although it did kind of take on that character. Of course, the Oliver Anthony song "Richmond North of Richmond" was a TikTok hit, and it was very much a viral video. So it was using social media distribution, including a lot of major conservative public figures were sharing it on their social media accounts as soon as it was released, and that really helped it find an audience again without necessarily like commercial radio stations or the usual major labels. It was an independent release.
Well, for decades, celebrities have made a point of addressing politics during award shows like the Oscars. Do you think that we've gotten to a point where fans expect or even demand to know where the celebrities they support stand on cultural issues?
Well, it's interesting for the audience. Clearly.
No, see, that's why we are where we are, because celebrities most of the time are inherently going to be narcissistic. That's why that's why they are celebrities. That's why they became that. They weren't, most of the time, they weren't birthed into this world and hailed as gods. There is going to be that disconnect. I gotta swing that back.
Decades, celebrities have made a point of addressing politics during award shows like the Oscars. Do you think that we've gotten to a point where fans expect or even...
No, like, keep your opinions to yourself. People, sometimes these people act, and they have roles of very intelligent, capable people. They're acting. Their opinions are worthless. Like, literally anyone else you come across in this world, their opinions are going to hold more water or at least equal to any celebrity, any actor, or any singer that you put a microphone and ask them their thoughts on a world problem. That is not in their zone. This is going to run a little long.
Demand to know where the celebrities they support stand on cultural issues.
Well, it's interesting for the audience. Clearly they develop relationships with their favorite celebrities, actors, and actresses, and increasingly want them to reflect their values. So you can imagine a lot of celebrities are really trying to walk that line, or at least trying to appeal to a major part of the audience. But there is an expectation. Increasingly, we see, and this is throughout media and also advertising and marketing, this concept of kind of having a social sort of responsibility and a kind of a stand that helps connect with an audience that they want to see kind of not just their favorite stars, but also their values reflected in the entertainment they consume.
Okay, so back in September of this year, Vote.org said that they saw their biggest voter registration day since 2020, and it came after Taylor Swift posted an Instagram story encouraging her fans to register to vote. They credited Taylor with helping them register roughly 35,000 new voters. Of course, she has millions of fans in her fan base. Are we making too big of a deal about the power of celebrities to influence the world of politics?
Well, celebrities can absolutely influence the world of politics. Sometimes celebrities can become.
No, and I don't like seeing that. I think you don't have to vote. If that's not your thing, if it doesn't interest you, the issues, please don't burden us with your uninformed opinions. And that is something, it is a reality we have to deal with. When the biggest celebrity in the world tells you to register to vote and will likely point to the left or right, that's a lot of influence. Whatever side she would endorse, that's a big obstacle for the opponent to get around. And I don't know if they're even trying.
Politicians. Donald Trump would be a major example of that. So, the thought that this world of celebrity is, too frivolous or too sort of just irreverent to matter in something as serious as politics, that's not true at all. What Taylor Swift is doing with her voter registration drives is, again, a very familiar pattern in American politics. It's not exactly a new phenomenon, but it does absolutely demonstrate the intensive power of celebrity on all aspects of our world, for better and for worse.
So public pushback against anti-LGBTQ sentiments in the world of country music specifically is no longer uncommon. Miranda Lambert, she's been a vocal supporter of her brother and his husband. In 2012, Carrie Underwood became one of the first country artists to publicly support gay marriage. Although it can seem like we've never been more divided, do you see these debates, especially within a genre seemingly aligned with conservatism, eventually leading to less divisiveness?
It's a little bit hard to say because there are also plenty of, hot.
Well, see, the problem is there's not really people who think like that. People on the right, conservatives. There's not really music in the mainstream for them either. It's certainly out there, which Oliver Anthony exposed. He changed my perspective on music. I didn't stop just listening to him. I found all kind of amazing musicians in that general genre. People on the right, yeah, they climb in their trucks and they turn on the country station that plays metrosexual males singing about things that they've never done before. Country music has been country music for well over 20 years now. And here and there a song will come out, but it's not the same. So yeah, and that may have been part of the plan, and that would have been a brilliant plan. You slowly take away the music and you replace the messaging and you change hearts and minds.
Popular country songs that are on the other side of the kind of political spectrum Not just the Oliver Anthony song, which he came out and kind of clarified. No, I don't mean to be a sort of conservative or Republican spokesperson. The battle lines are kind of drawn, and I would say country is something that's so big now that it could find, there are elements of the world of country that could find itself on both sides of those dividing lines. But I don't know if it really changes the fact that those lines are still there.
Okay, so I want to turn to environmental activism. The Climate Ambassadors Network, it's made up of a group of young climate activists. They're working in Hollywood to infiltrate every part of the industry with the goal of influencing the public. Are there opposing groups?
See, the heart of a conservative isn't different than the heart of a Christian in too many different respects. Sometimes it is the same, sometimes it's not too many off. But what she was just speaking about, the climate, we hate hypocrites. Because of all things that Jesus raged about, hypocrites seem to bother him the most. And it's not just the climate. They lecture us about being tolerant. When I live behind gates, we're tired of being lectured by politicians, by the news, by celebrities. We've been slowly being vilified for 20, 25 years. And we matter.
Working in Hollywood now to spread a more conservative view that you're aware of?
I'm not aware of an effort to influence Hollywood
mental active
on, and I would say country is something that's so big now that it could find, there are elements of the world of country that could find itself on both sides of those dividing lines. But I don't know if it really changes the fact that those lines are still there.
Okay, so I want to turn to environmental activism. The Climate Ambassadors Network, it's made up of a group of young climate activists. They're working in Hollywood to infiltrate every part of the industry with the goal of influencing the public. Are there opposing groups working in Hollywood now to spread a more conservative view that you're aware of?
I'm not aware of.
So the conservatives who make up the hunting and fishing population, most of it, they don't care about the environment. They do not know what they say, and we allow it.
An effort to influence Hollywood studios, to make different kinds of messages in their films. It probably has a lot to do with the fact that they understand, any advocate group that was pushing that kind of agenda, something against the environmental movement, would probably at this point assume that a company like, Disney, for instance, would be a bit of a lost cause. So they're simply going into different channels and avenues, as I was speaking about before, trying to create new movie studios that would be run by conservative people who would have those kinds of opinions and values at their core, and they would be championing those kinds of projects.
Well, schools have become a major cultural battleground from which books remain on shelves in school libraries to which plays can be staged by theater students. Is book banning a sign of a society in decline?
Well, it's certainly
There's no book banning. There is not book banning and not providing pornography to children. It's not censorship.
A sign of this intensive backlash to a sort of progressive cultural politics around race, gender, and sexuality. And it is certainly not a new pattern at all. I mean, I think that's something, the reason why these recent book bans and even maybe sometimes book burnings, they sort of captured a lot of the public imagination because they're so reminiscent of earlier periods of history. A good reason to be concerned about that is certainly as a sign of, not just kind of backlash, but of these sort of reactionary populist movements that have certainly become, very powerful in this country. I think that group that was really behind a lot of those efforts, Moms for Liberty, they just had a pretty rough election cycle. Some of their candidates, they were running in certain races in the 2023 sort of off-year elections, did not win those races. And it's possible that that kind of message left a bad taste in some of the voters' mouths, I guess you could say.
So that was what you could imagine, full of just delusion. That was nothingness. That is straw man and fallacies. That was something special. Expand your horizons. No matter which direction you're pointed in, look to the opposite. Take in some. I mean, I'm never gonna change, but it doesn't hurt to understand how the other people think. I've read some books or listened to books of people that I completely disagree with, and I'm the better for reading them. So, what's the lesson? We need to communicate. That whole, you don't talk about religion or politics. Now, you certainly don't want to get into hateful arguments. But you do want to talk about religion and politics with love. Now, don't get in trouble at work. That's not a good answer. But we do need to talk about these things. This is why we are where we're at, because that's why we stopped talking about what was important. I sometimes get accused of, hey, man, why are we always trying to talk about serious stuff? It's like, well, that's why we are where we are. A generation stopped caring. We won World War II, and the next generation thought, it's all good, we don't have to worry anymore. It was never true. And they just allowed attacks and attacks to our way of life. And we may be near the edge. So love one another, love God. See you next time.